Last week, the best off-road riders in the world were challenged by the sand of Florida. And while it was a rough and tumble ride for some, the race winners felt like it was akin to a racing vacation. But that won't be the case today. Mother Nature is about to wreak havoc. This is going to feel like work. Hello everyone and welcome to the NBC Sports Network's continuing coverage of the Amsoil Grand National Cross Country Series presented by Maxxis. It's an AMA National Championship. Today highlights from round 2, the Maxxis General GNCC in Washington, Georgia. It's a little over an hour outside of Atlanta. We'll give you the full show today, highlights of ATV and dirt bike action, as well as the very popular UTV series, and not only different machines, but different conditions as well. Our Saturday race day for ATVs was nearly perfect, and when the UTVs got out, there was even a little bit of dust in the air. And yes, by the way, call them razors, rhinos, mules, commanders, whatever you want. We race them here in Grand National Cross Country. Luckily, though, they didn't have to deal with this. It wasn't until Saturday night and Sunday morning that we were greeted by a deluge, which turned the distinctive red Georgia clay into nothing more than a mud bath. Nothing red about this, it's just straight up brown and black dirt. But we race rain or shine, and let's start with the shine. Saturday, perfect conditions for our ATV Pro event. Chris Borich to the left, defending champ as challengers. Like Adam McGill you saw there, this is Walker Fowler. They want to take it to the man who has won 5 straight championships. His good buddy Chris Bithell there led a lot of laps in Florida. There's Kevin Yoho on the left. All these riders zoning in on that number 1 of Borich. Can he keep the streak alive? Opening ceremonies, this is McGill, having fun as always. Never seems to take the racing too seriously, and you shouldn't. The bottom line is we're going to be racing ATVs through the woods for 2 hours. There's really nothing that's not fun about that. I'm Jason Wygant here to give you the race call, and that is McGill grabbing the hole shot. See, I told you having fun at the races was key. Quickly yielding the lead, though, to his good friend Fowler. Fowler was second in the championship last year, denoted by the number 2. McGill third last season. So again, these are 2 riders expected to go after Borich, and look at what they were able to do immediately, turning a couple of bumps into double jumps and picking up the pace, while Borich was much further back. In our XC slow-mo here, you can see how hard Fowler had to work. He had his Am-Pro and Fab Yamaha absolutely dialed in. And he and McGill set a pace that no one could match early. They really started to open it up and make it a private duel for the win. Now, a lot of folks have been waiting for Fowler here to come of age. By far the most dominant youth and amateur ATV racer in GNCC history, including a year when he swept every single round of the XC2 division, which is the feeder class into this XC1 Pro division. So the question is this the year where he has the maturity to be consistent week in and week out, instead of just winning races here and there as he's done the last couple of seasons? He's got plenty of help doing it. You can see the blue shirts here off the left side pointing out the lines. Those are the Yamaha people cheering him on. He still has McGill hot on his heels. Borich had worked his way up to third on his Maxxis-backed Suzuki. He's got a long way to go to catch the lead duo, and he has some pressure from behind from Yoho, Jared McClure, and Brian Wolf. If you want to get to the front, that's one of the best ways to do it. Just stay in touch with the champ. Now, even though Fowler and McGill had opened up a nice lead with hard riding like this, you're never totally out of the shark-infested waters when Borich is in traffic. He has made a living on feasting on riders on the last lap of the race. Today's 2-hour event scheduled to go 4 laps of a little over 10 miles each. So any kind of damage these boys were doing to him early certainly wasn't going to rattle the champ. And then Borich started to kick it into gear. He knew he had to shake the riders who were pressuring him from behind and zero in on the twosome that had led the early laps of Georgia. Here's Yoho trying to keep the champion in sight. Chris Bithell and Brian Wolf doing the same. And all the while, the battle between Fowler and McGill continued to rage. You can tell these two are comfortable. They've spent a lot of laps battling like this, and they never get too aggressive with each other. I think that pacing themselves like they've done has actually made it better for both. So they'll try to run some teamwork. Same thing with Boric and Bittel, who's climbed to fourth. We're going to try to close in on these two. We'll have more ATV action a little bit later, but next up, the bikes.
Twins have notoriously been very hard on crankshafts because that big long stroke with those two cylinders just flexes the crankshaft around. So we were seeing bearing issues. Research development people at Amsoil could show us that it was likely an oil problem. And they were correct. That was the issue. Instead of having to redesign the engine, I just had to do a better quality oil.
Racer TV is brought to you by Amsoil, by Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and by Can Am. Hey folks, welcome back to Racer TV's coverage of the Amsoil Grand National Cross Country Series. We're showing you highlights from Saturday's ATV event. Now we're going to switch over to the bike side and get back to the ATV conclusion later. The big difference, huge rain here on Sunday. We had perfect conditions in that ATV event, but the bike riders are going to have to go at it in the mud. Let's see how it turns out. The only good news, these riders are the best of the best riding in these conditions. When you race an East Coast Series in the woods, you know you're going to deal with a lot of mud and rain. And dealing with it best into the first turn, the veteran Paul Whibley on the number 5 and his teammate on a Yamaha, Josh Strang. Strang is going to steal the whole shot from Whibley on the number 4, and the two blue bikes are the only two that are pretty much running their existing colors. Everyone else is already getting pelted and covered in mud. Oh, this would be a race survival of the fittest. Normally, we race bikes for 3 hours. Today, they're going to cut the event to a little over 2, and I don't think with conditions like this, even before they get onto the main race trail, that anyone is going to complain about that. Now back to the starting line, we go for XC2. These are for the young riders on 250cc bikes. They primarily race 450s on row 1 that you saw earlier. So again, young riders here, and what kid doesn't like playing in the mud? Happiest of all, Shane Hufford at the number 11 from Pennsylvania, grabs the digitaloffroad.com hole shot and gets to roost all of his buddies, who have by now been able to witness just how bad the course conditions are from watching the riders on the first row. I'm not even going to attempt to tell you what numbers and what riders are coming through now because they are already covered. And a lot of the riders will tell you in races like this, even they don't know what position they're in most of the way around. Although it's easy to figure out if you're up front, and that's what Josh Strang is, the veteran out of Australia, has had a trying last couple of years. Won this GNCC title overall in 2010, broke his leg at the end of the 2011 season, was only able to race sporadically in 12 due to the injury, returned full-time last year, finished 4th, which was okay, but is yet to get a victory. Then he makes a mistake early while leading this one, opening the door for the New Zealand native, Paul Whibley, a 2-time GNCC champ, to take the lead. Here's Charlie Mullins up to 2nd. He gets stuck, Strang right behind him. And the radar is out for the number 1, Caleb Russell. There he is, about 5th. Your defending GNCC champ, not known for great starts, and that makes life very difficult in muddy conditions like this. Now, the bike riders did have to deal with some rain and mud also at the opener in Florida a week ago. And Russell, there he is again with a bad start there, ran into mechanical problems as he tried to fight, scratch, and claw his way through traffic in these conditions. And look, there is Strang stalling his Yamaha. Mullins able to get by. It's pretty obvious now this will be a race of attrition. Mullins and Russell pulling into the FMF factory KTM pits for goggles, gloves, a drink of water. Mullins getting a strategy session in with his wife Rachel on the right. This one really is going to be about finishing first before you can finish in first place. And that's where Paul Whibley on the number 5 Ampro NFAB Yamaha shines. He is as tough as they come. And when it's a true survival event like this, he just does not give up. Everyone else scrambling behind him. Strang, the Australian, back to 2nd. The KTM duo of Mullins and Russell, third and fourth. And trying to hang with the number 3 and the Rockstar Johnny Campbell Racing Honda out of Indiana, the long, lanky kid, Chris Bach. Again, these are the conditions that Paul Whibley thrives in. They call him the Badger because once he gets a hold of you, he simply does not give up. It's not going to be easy to break him down on a rough track like this. Mullins, Russell, Strang, and the rest are going to try to do it. We'll be back with more highlights.
Sometimes you come across something so different, you just have to stop and check it out. The Rocky Mountain ATV MC website has everything you need, from our huge selection of tires, ATV and UTV accessories, and OEM parts, to our online chat, customer reviews, and instructional videos. Our extensive inventory means most orders arrive in 3 days or less. Get low prices, quick shipping, and incredible customer service. RockyMountainATVMC.com. Get ready.
Racer TV is brought to you by Amsoil, by Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and by Can-Am. You're watching highlights from round 2 of the Amsoil Grand National Cross Country Series. It's called the Maxxis General GNCC outside of Atlanta, Washington, GA. We're going to give you the review of the Can-Am UTV race. Ultimate terrain vehicles, side-by-sides, whatever you want to call them. We'll race them here in GNCC, and not just on the motocross track, not just in the field, but straight up in the woods. And that means some bumping and some grinding, occasionally some high centering. But the drivers love it, because with age comes a cage, and John Yoakley, formerly a front runner in the GNCC Series back on ATVs in the late 1980s, leads the way here in the number 3 Big Country Power Sports machine. And Tim Farr, one of the all-time greats of ATV motocross, challenging him in the number 41 Can-Am JB Racing Maverick. Now, Yoakley and his brother William have been tearing up this UTV series for the last couple of years in their Polarises, but this Can-Am Maverick with Farr at the wheel, giving Yoakley a real challenge all day long. They stay within a couple of seconds of each other throughout the 1-hour race. By the time the checkered flag was coming out, Yoakley was in command. William Yoakley is their defending series champ. Today, John Yoakley takes the victory in the number 3. Congrats to him and the team from Big Country Power Sports. And by the way, his co-driver was Jared McClure, who is in the top 5 in this ATV race, doing the driving himself in this situation, or the riding. But riding the best of all is Walker Fowler, who you might have remembered was our early leader, and he has now started to extend it over the rest of the field. The talent and dedication of this kid, in absolutely no doubt. Same thing with Adam McGill, who's here in second. But in these long 2-hour races, it's just as much about experience and smarts as it is fitness and speed. And when race strategy becomes a factor, you have to start thinking about Chris Borich, your defending GNCC champion. But on this day, Fowler rode with the calm and cool of a veteran. When there's 1 lap to go in a Grand National cross-country race, most people expect Borich to go to another level, challenge for the win. Fowler rolls into the Ampro NFAB Yamaha tent. He gets goggles, he gets gas. And the whole team just seemed comfortable where they were, leading the way. You see right in front there with the gray hair, that's his dad, Danny. He's been bringing Walker through these GNCC ranks, both on bikes and ATVs, for nearly 10 years now. And all the experience that they have is paying off on this day. Because even down the stretch, when the pack usually tightens up, there was simply no one in sight of the number 2. Here's Borich making a late run. He gets around McGill to climb into second. And you hear some of his fans on the side of the track screaming, "Go, Borich, go." When you win 5 straight GNCC titles like Borich has, you certainly are going to gain a lot of fans. They call them the Borich Bandits. They're usually out there in yellow t-shirts, and they're pumping their guy up, hoping he can go after Fowler. But in this case, he makes a mistake. McGill gets back around him for second, throws in a few fist pumps to celebrate. And the champion, pushed back to third again, has to reset himself. Now, confidence and momentum is a huge part of this game. And even Chris Borich knows that if this kid, Fowler, can get on a roll, it might make it that much tougher to win his 6th straight GNCC title. But unfortunately today, no one was able to stop the kid from doing just that. He got the momentum, he got the confidence, he got on a roll, and he absolutely dominated the Maxxis General GNCC. The question now, will the Yamaha rider be able to put up a consistent championship threat for Boric all year long, or was this the case of one rider simply having one great day? You'll have to keep watching all season long to find out. But the bench racing conjecture is for later. Right now, it's time for Walker Fowler to celebrate with his team. When you win in dominating fashion like that, you might as well let it soak in. Better yet, his good friend McGill holds on for second on the RacingPowersports.com, CST Tires, PirateMX.com back machine. Fowler congratulates him. He's probably just as happy to see his buddy finish second as he is to see his buddy hold off Boric and cost the champion some points. Not too much to worry about, though. Boric always plays it close to the vest. He's not going to be too upset about this one. And you'll even see here, look, he throws a thumbs up to his competitors. Here are your Amsoil results. Bithell in fourth. McClure, the co-driver in the winning UTV machine, finishes top 5 on his ATV. The Wolves, Shadron, Gallagher, and Yoho round out the top 10. We'll be right back.
What do you call a machine that combines precision-engineered handling, industry-leading power, and a rider-focused design? We call it a Can-Am. From the essentials to fully loaded, you'll find that same combination in every ATV and side-by-side we build. And right now, get your own for as low as $149 a month. Can-Am, the ride says it all.
Racer TV is brought to you by Amsoil, by Rocky Mountain ATV MC, and by Can-Am. We're racing at times here at the Maxxis General GNCC in Georgia. The bike riders having to deal with a tremendous amount of rain and mud, so at times they all grind completely to a halt when they get stuck. In fact, in races like this, the victory often comes down to who gets stuck the least as opposed to who just doesn't get stuck at all, because that's nearly impossible. And so many riders got stuck so many times that most of them commented after the race that they didn't even know what position they were in most of the time. Early on, a bunch of Yamahas up front. Paul Whibley, his teammate Jordan Ashburn. We also saw Jock Strang there. Then the KTM riders, Charlie Mullins and Caleb Russell, also in the hunt. But then, a huge upset in the making. From row 2 on a 250, 16-year-old Grant Baylor would get in the mix with the top guns in the XC1 class on 450s from row 1. Now here's Mullins taking the lead back. Physically, got his teammate Russell right behind him. Whibley, Ashburn, and Strang on the Yamahas staying close, but here comes Baylor. The kid on the little two-stroke was keeping them honest. In fact, he was going so fast, he eventually passed all the riders on row 1 and took the physical overall lead. No one has ever won a GNCC race overall from the second row. This kid had a chance to make some history. And he wasn't going to let the opportunity slip away. He kept his KTM pinned. The veterans here, like Mullins, were going to have to change their strategy. They were all just trying to survive, but the kid was holding strong and starting to get away. The rider to respond best, right here, the number 1. Trust me, that's the number underneath all that mud. Caleb Russell. He turned it up in the last 2 laps of the race, leaving behind a great battle between the Yamaha boys, Ashburn, Whibley, and Strang, as well as Mullins. Russell would eventually put his number 1 machine into the physical overall lead on the track. The real question, though, was could he get far enough ahead of Baylor to beat him on adjusted time? And could he himself stay out of the type of trouble that everyone was dealing with on the muddy race course? Look at that slime as they come down into the water. That's like riding on ice. Then you have to deal with the mud in the bottom of the pile here. There's Mullins riding without goggles. He had completely trashed those. You're dealing with mud flying up onto the goggle lens. Also, tree branches will sometimes lay down some water and mud on top of the goggles. Everyone was hustling, especially Russell down the stretch, trying to get away from Baylor to beat him on adjusted time. There's Baylor right there trying to keep pace, with Strang and Whibley there as well. Late in the game, Russell's pace was too much for anyone to stop him. He was able to put the distance that he needed to put on Baylor. He looked like he had this one under control, but no leader is safe when you're running through mud, rain, and water like this. He knew he would have to really hustle all the way into the finish line. He had to finish 1 minute ahead of Baylor to win this thing on adjusted time, because Baylor started 1 minute behind him on row 2. So now it's down to Russell, hustling down the stretch through the final muddy corners, trying to build up a big enough lead. He has the class win, but he wants to win overall on the clock. Does he have enough distance to hold off the kid, Grant Baylor, who started on row 2? Checkered flag is out for Russell. He's the first rider through the finish line scoring area. And now all he can do is wait and hope that Baylor comes in late. Here comes Ashburn, a nice young man out of Tennessee. Well done. He'll finish second in the XC1 Pro Division on his Yamaha 450, but he too is wondering, where is Baylor? Will Baylor knock him out of the number 2 position overall? There goes Baylor, hustling through, dabbing through the rut, trying to make up ground. He finishes right in front of Whibley physically, but right behind Russell on adjusted time. He'll finish second overall, so close to making history as the first ever winner from row 2. There's Strang, fourth in the class, fifth overall, and there is Russell, calm, cool, and collected over those last 2 laps. He was able to make it happen. Grant Baylor, so close, yet so far. But as you look at the Amsoil results, Baylor will still have something to celebrate. He wins the XC2 division. Russell, Ashburn, and Whibley are your top 3 in XC1. Mullins, who won the opener, loses a few points to Russell here in the mud. Here's your XC2 results. Rory Mead second. He'll be your points leader after the first 2 rounds. Trevor Bollinger, a great ride, finish up in third. Ricky Russell, Shane Hufford is just wide open in that young XC2 division in 2014. Let's give you the Amsoil race recap. We saw all sorts of different racing and different racing conditions today for the Maxxis General GNCC. It started with a dominant ATV performance by Walker Fowler. Third at round 1, wins round 2. He looks to contend for the championship all season long. Then we had our UTV action. John Yoakley at the wheel of Big Country Power Sports backed Polaris Razor takes the victory in that class. And Caleb Russell with a come-from-behind charge through the mud is your bike overall winner. Want to thank you for watching. For everyone at Racer TV, I'm Jason Wygant. We'll see you next week.